This past week, Governor Rell laid out her budget. And after the speech, the talk of the town was her 5-year, $3.4 billion education plan. Or, more to the point, how she wants to pay for it. Fox 61's Jim Altman dissects the taxing plan and why not everyone is on board.
I am proposing a fractional increase across the board in the income tax rate.
The prospect of raising taxes raised eyebrows at the state capitol today. In her budget address, Governor Jody Rell proposed increasing the current tax level of 5% to 5.25% the first year and another 0.25% the next year. The billions raised would go to education. It is what the governor called the most ambitious and exciting education plan in state history. $3.4 billion over the next 5 years.
My education plan invests in our children, and I firmly believe it will save billions of dollars and thousands of young lives for generations to come.
Rell's plan offers funds for everything from lower-income schools to financial aid for higher ed. The governor says she plans to offset the tax hike by reintroducing her proposal to eliminate the property tax on cars, as well as add a tax on cigarettes from the current $1.51 a pack to $2 a pack. Most here agreed on the need to bolster education, but disagree on how to raise the money for it.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher because, you know, right now we have good revenues already. We have $1 billion in reserve rainy day, $500 million in surplus. So why do we need all that revenue of another $1.3 billion of new taxes?
I wouldn't support it as it is today, but as I indicated, we're going to work towards making it better so that we can support it.
Senate President Donald Williams says the governor's plan does offer hope.
The good news today is that it's a very good first step, one that we haven't really seen before from a Republican governor in the state of Connecticut.
No more easy promises, no more press releases, no more summits. Let's get it done.
At the state capitol, Jim Altman, Fox 61, News at 10.
Here now to talk about the proposed state budget are Deputy Minority Leader David Cappiello, Assistant Majority Leader Jonathan Harris, and Manchester Journal-Inquirer reporter Keith Faniff. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. You know, I was at the grocery store today. Jimmy talked about how everyone is talking about it, and the woman who's bagging my groceries said to me, isn't there some other way for us that we are raising money for education? And I guess what would you, either of you, what would your answer for her to be?
Well, I find it ironic that I am in agreement with the Speaker of the House, the Democrat Speaker. You know, we have a $1.1 billion rainy day fund. We have $600 million surplus this year. And what's being proposed is a 0.5%, or really a 10% increase in the income tax, and getting rid of the property tax credit on our income tax. I don't think that the taxpayers should bear the brunt of that burden, and I don't think they want to.
Well, the governor's tax increase is on the table. I think you have to take 3 steps when you analyze it. First, any tax increase will have to be also set off by tax decreases, cutting the regressive property tax. Very important to save people dollars. 2, the money that's raised has to be spent in a way that invests to avoid costs in the future, to save taxpayer dollars down the road. And that's a very important piece of it, too. And finally, we have to make sure that we exhaust all cuts when we're doing our budget to minimize any tax increases.
And is this the plan to do that? Achieve any of those things?
Well, the governor's proposal did not have any cost savings in there that I could see as of yet. It is a $35 billion 2-year budget, but I think it's our job to now go through the budget, see where we can save some money instead of just jumping right to tax increases.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the process. David and I both serve on appropriations. He's a great colleague on that committee. We're going to spread the budget out, look at it, make sure it does the right thing. For instance, education, great investment because it does save dollars down the road, having educated kids. But if you look at other areas of the governor's budget, not much in health care, that's costing taxpayers a lot of dollars. Human services, keeping our seniors out of nursing homes, also costing the taxpayer a lot of dollars. We have to make sure we're balanced in the way that we spend also.
Senator, while you're talking health care, your caucus had a $450 million universal health care plan. That's a huge additional price tag that's not even in the governor's proposal. You all campaigned on that. Do you think that if you go forward with the governor's plan, you have to give up on universal health care this session?
We're not going to give up on universal health care, no. We need to have universal access to health care because, again, that's the right thing to do and it saves the taxpayers dollars. But what we have to do is $450 million, half of which will be matched by the federal government in the end if we get that passed, a very important point. But also, and that's what we have to do now, just like your diet has to be balanced, all food groups. Same thing with the budget. We have to make sure that we take a balanced approach and we spread things out so that we can get as much savings by investing our dollars as we can down the road.
Speaking of balance, I spoke with the governor this week, and she said that she thought part of balancing this budget was that she's going to, again, try to eliminate the local car tax. I mean, is that going to help residents out?
Well, it depends on how it's going to be paid for. Again, the governor's looking to eliminate the car tax, but she's also looking to eliminate the $500 property tax on our income tax, along with the 10% increase in the state income tax across the board. My concern is that some of the Democrat majority, not including my colleague here, have said this is a good starting point for spending. And it's a huge increase in spending, $3.4 billion over the next few years. If that's a starting point, I'm very afraid of where we're going to end up. And we have to remember that Connecticut just lost 17,000 people last year. We had the slowest job growth in the nation. And we have to focus on expanding our tax base before just raising taxes for those that are here, because more people will continue to leave the state of Connecticut.
Senator Cappiello, if you're driving up budget cuts, let me ask you, there's $150 million in the governor's budget just for raises, not all throughout state government, just for new contracts that happen to be resolved in the next 2 years. How come nobody is talking about the huge part of state government that's tied to employees' salaries and employees' benefits? Is it time at all to begin to study that and see if there's some way over time to cut that cost?
Well, now you're speaking my language, but I'm in the minority on that school of thought. We have a very large state employee pool of people, over 50,000 people, and the governor's talking about adding new state employees. I'm not sure that's the right way to go. We have the best health care benefits in the nation for our state employees that we also benefit from. And I think we need to start looking at not only streamlining our state employee pool, but also looking at our healthcare system and the benefits that are being offered until the year 2017. It's a huge problem that we have to face. Our healthcare system is better. We have the best benefits in the country. The people in the private sector look at our benefits. They can't believe we have a $3 copay for prescription drugs. These are the things that we have to look at, just look at, cost savings in the budget.
And Keith, we're in agreement on that. I think we are doing that. Actually, on the Appropriations Committee now, we're employing results-based accountability, a strict and efficient way of budgeting that's been used in the private sector for years. We're taking a look at programs, making sure that there are certain indicators and that benchmarks are reached, and figuring out what programs are working, what aren't. And also, instead of doing what we've done in the past, where, for instance, in early education, I believe 9 agencies have a little piece of early education, we are starting to take a overall view at the population and of kids that we're trying to educate, and making sure in a vertical kind of way that those programs are cooperating, that we're spending efficiently, and that's where in the end we'll get our savings.
Keith, you're there at the Capitol every day. What else is intriguing you about this budget process?
There are still some holes in this budget. Believe me, by the time it gets through the legislature, they won't be empty. There's no money for the next 2 years for nursing homes. Just 2 years ago, we almost had a strike. There's no money for all the nonprofit providers who do everything from working with the mentally retarded, abused children, drug addicts. There's very little increase in that. These things aren't going to get through the legislature empty. There's no money to bail out the Yukon Health Center. They've asked for about $20 million to get them through the next 2 years. The governor knows by the time this budget gets back to her, there are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars added on. She's already $500 million over the spending cap, and she said she'll go over for what she wants. She said today, not what the legislature wants. That's going to lead to a fight.
Excellent. It's been interesting so far. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.